I still remember the smell of desperation that lingered in the air, a constant reminder of the life I was living. It was a chilly winter morning in urban America, the kind of morning where the cold seeped into your bones and made you question every decision that led you to this moment. I was 22 years old, and my life was a never-ending struggle to make ends meet. My apartment was a small, dingy room in a rundown building, with peeling paint and a broken elevator that seemed to be a permanent fixture. The walls were thin, and I could hear the constant arguing of my neighbors, a harsh reminder of the world I lived in. As I walked out of my apartment, the bright sunlight hit me like a slap in the face. The city was alive, bustling with people rushing to and fro, each with their own story to tell. I, on the other hand, felt like I was stuck in limbo. I had no job, no prospects, and no idea what I wanted to do with my life. The only thing I knew was that I needed to survive. I walked for hours, my feet aching from the worn-out shoes that seemed to be held together by sheer willpower. I passed by rows of abandoned houses, their windows shattered and their doors hanging off hinges. It was a bleak reminder of the poverty that had taken over this once thriving neighborhood. I knew I wasn't alone in my struggles. There were countless others like me, fighting to stay afloat in a world that seemed determined to sink us. As I turned a corner, I saw a group of people rummaging through trash cans, collecting anything of value they could find. It was a scene that was all too familiar, one that I had witnessed countless times before. But something about it struck a chord in me. I watched as they carefully sorted through the trash, their eyes scanning for anything that could be sold or reused. It was then that I saw it, a glimmer of hope in a world that seemed devoid of it. I approached the group, my heart racing with excitement. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. One of them looked up at me, a mixture of curiosity and suspicion etched on his face. "Collecting cans," he replied gruffly. "You can sell them for a decent price." I watched as they worked, my mind racing with ideas. It was then that I saw the spark of determination that would change my life forever. I realized that I didn't have to be a victim of my circumstances. I could take control, make a change, and create something from nothing. The idea was obscure, but it was there, lingering in the back of my mind, waiting to be turned into a tangible plan. As I walked back to my apartment, the city seemed different. The sun seemed brighter, the air fresher, and the possibilities endless. I knew I had a long way to go, but for the first time in years, I felt a sense of purpose. I felt like I was walking towards something, rather than away from it. And that feeling, that glimmer of hope, was all I needed to keep going. As I walked through the neighborhood, my eyes scanned the streets, taking in the familiar sights of discarded trash and litter. But where others saw waste, I saw opportunity. My mind was buzzing with the idea that had been building inside me for weeks, to collect empty bottles and cans and turn them into cash. I remember the first day I started collecting like it was yesterday. I had scoured the neighborhood, gathering as many empty bottles and cans as I could carry. My backpack was heavy, but my spirits were high. I had a sense of purpose, a sense that I was taking control of my life. But it wasn't easy. The work was grueling and the pay was minimal. I faced skepticism from friends and family who saw my endeavors as nothing more than a waste of time. "Why bother?" they'd ask. "You'll never make a living from collecting trash." But I refused to listen. I was driven by a fierce determination to succeed, to prove to myself and others that I could turn this idea into something real. And so I persisted, day after day, collecting and sorting and selling my finds to the local recycling center. It wasn't long before I started to see the fruits of my labor. My daily hauls were growing, and with them my earnings. I began to see the potential for growth, for expansion, and my mind started to whirl with ideas. I started to envision a business, a real business, with employees and trucks and a warehouse. I spent every spare moment researching, learning about the recycling industry, and brainstorming ways to increase my efficiency and profits. I devoured books on business planning, attended seminars, and sought out mentors. And slowly but surely, my idea began to take shape. I started to see the world in a different light, as a place of endless possibility, where even the humblest of beginnings could lead to greatness. And I knew, deep in my bones, that I was onto something special. The question was, where would it take me? As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, my small operation of collecting empty bottles started to gain momentum. I was no longer just a single person collecting cans and bottles. I had become a small business owner, with a handful of employees working for me. We were collecting thousands of pounds of recyclables every week, and our customer base was expanding rapidly. I remember the first time we expanded into a new area. We had been operating in our local neighborhood for months, but we finally had the resources to start collecting in other parts of the city. It was a thrilling experience as we explored new neighborhoods and met new people. We faced new challenges, of course, different regulations, different competition, different customer needs. But we were determined to succeed. As we grew, I realized the importance of adaptability and resilience. We encountered unexpected problems, like a sudden shortage of storage space or a mechanical issue with one of our trucks. But we always found a way to solve them, to adapt to the new situation and keep moving forward. And that's what made our business thrive. I also started to realize the impact our business was having on the community and the environment. We were reducing waste, conserving natural resources, and creating jobs. It was a feeling of pride and fulfillment that I had never experienced before. We were making a difference, and that's what drove us to keep pushing forward. As we expanded across America, we encountered different landscapes, different cultures, and different ways of life. We saw the beauty of the country, from the sun-kissed deserts of Arizona to the lush forests of Oregon. We met people from all walks of life, each with their own story and their own struggles. And we realized that our business was not just about collecting empty bottles. It was about connecting with people, about being part of a community. I remember one of our employees, a young woman from a small town in the Midwest. She had been struggling to find a job, but she was passionate about the environment. We hired her, and she quickly became one of our most dedicated employees. She was instrumental in helping us expand into new areas, and her enthusiasm was contagious. As we continued to grow, we faced new challenges and opportunities. We had to navigate complex regulations, manage a growing workforce, and balance our social responsibility with our financial goals. But we were determined to succeed, to make a difference in the world. And that's what drove us forward every step of the way. But as we look to the future, one question lingers. What role does sustainability play in our business's continued success? Is it just a buzzword, a marketing gimmick? Or is it something more, something that can drive our growth and our impact? The answer, I believe, lies ahead. As I sat in my small office, surrounded by the hum of machinery and the chatter of employees, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. What started as a small operation to collect empty bottles had grown into a thriving recycling company, spanning multiple states and employing dozens of people. But with growth comes competition, and I knew that to stay ahead, I had to focus on sustainability and innovation. I spent countless hours researching the latest recycling technologies, attending conferences, and networking with experts in the field. I was fascinated by the advancements in green technologies and how they could be applied to my business. One concept that particularly caught my attention was the idea of closed-loop recycling. Instead of just processing materials and selling them as raw materials, I wanted to create a system where we could produce new products from the recycled materials. This not only made economic sense, but also significantly reduced the company's carbon footprint. I made the decision to invest heavily in sustainable business practices, from solar panels on our facilities to electric vehicles for our collection fleet. We implemented a zero-waste policy in our offices and encouraged employees to adopt environmentally friendly habits. It wasn't just about saving money. It was about doing the right thing for the planet. As the months went by, I could see the positive impact our business was having on the environment. We were diverting millions of pounds of waste from landfills, conserving water, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Our customers took notice too, and we started to attract clients who shared our values and commitment to sustainability. But with increased demand came new challenges. Our facilities were running at full capacity, and we needed to expand to meet the growing demand. I was faced with a daunting question. How could we scale our operations without sacrificing our commitment to sustainability? The thought sent a thrill through me, and I couldn't wait to tackle the challenge head-on. Little did I know, the next chapter of our journey was just around the corner, full of new opportunities and obstacles. I still remember the day our recycling company's revenue hit the $1 million mark. It was a surreal moment, and I felt like I was on top of the world. But little did I know, this milestone would bring its own set of challenges. As the business expanded and grew, I found myself struggling to keep up with the demands of managing a rapidly expanding team. I was no longer just collecting empty bottles on the streets. I was now a leader, responsible for making tough decisions that would impact the livelihoods of my employees. I recall one particularly grueling day when I had to make a difficult decision about whether to invest in new equipment or hire more staff. I spent hours agonizing over the pros and cons, feeling the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. It was a lonely experience, but one that taught me the importance of leadership and decision-making. As the company's success grew, so did the attention. I started receiving invitations to speak at conferences and interviews with major media outlets. At first, it was exciting to share my story with a wider audience, but soon I found myself feeling overwhelmed by the constant scrutiny. I began to feel like I was losing myself in the process, like I was just a persona rather than a person. My relationships with friends and family also started to suffer. I was so focused on the business that I neglected the people who mattered most to me. I remember my best friend calling me out on it, saying, "You're so busy being a CEO, you forgot how to be a friend." It was a harsh reality check, but one that I needed. I realized that success comes with a price, and that price is often our mental and emotional well-being. I started to prioritize self-care, making time for meditation, exercise, and hobbies outside of work. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Looking back, I realized that the challenges of success are just as real as the struggles of survival. But it's how we navigate these challenges that defines us. As I stood at the helm of my company, I knew that I had a choice to make. Let the pressures of success consume me, or rise above them and find a way to thrive. The question was, how would I navigate the challenges of fame and success? I still remember the day our company's success story made it to the front pages of the national newspapers. Suddenly, we were the talk of the town, and everyone wanted a piece of us. Journalists and interviewers started calling, emailing, and even showing up at our doorstep, all eager to get a quote or a scoop. At first, I was thrilled by the attention. Who wouldn't want their business to be featured in the media? But as the days went by, I realized that being in the public eye came with its own set of challenges. Every move I made, every word I spoke was under scrutiny. I had to be constantly aware of my image, my tone, and my message. One misstep, and it could all come crashing down. I recall one particularly grueling day when I had to do back-to-back interviews with several major networks. I was asked the same questions over and over, but I had to answer them with a smile, with enthusiasm, and with precision. By the end of the day, I was exhausted, but I knew I couldn't let my guard down. As the media attention intensified, I began to feel like I was living in a fishbowl. Every aspect of my life was under the microscope. My personal relationships, my family, my friends, they all became fair game for the media. I had to be careful about who I associated with, what I said, and what I did. Despite the challenges, I knew that this was a price I had to pay for success, and I was determined to make the most of it. I started to use the media attention to our advantage, crafting a narrative that would showcase our company's mission, values, and achievements. I became more deliberate about the message I wanted to convey, the image I wanted to project, and the reputation I wanted to build. It wasn't easy, but I learned to navigate the complexities of being a public figure. I surrounded myself with a team of advisors, coaches, and mentors who helped me stay focused, stay grounded, and stay authentic. And I made sure to prioritize my own well-being, taking time out for self-care and reflection whenever I needed it. As the spotlight shone brighter, I began to see the opportunities that came with it. We started to receive investments, partnerships, and collaborations that helped us grow our business even further. We expanded our operations, hired more staff, and launched new initiatives that made a real impact on our community. But with every step forward, I knew that I had to stay true to myself and our company's values. I had to be mindful of the fine line between authenticity and image, between honesty and spin. And I had to be willing to adapt, to learn, and to evolve as the landscape around me changed. As I look back, I realized that being in the public eye was a double-edged sword. It brought us fame, fortune, and opportunities we never could have imagined. But it also brought scrutiny, criticism, and pressure to constantly perform. But I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it taught me the importance of resilience, adaptability, and staying true to myself, no matter what the world threw my way. As I stood on the stage, accepting yet another award for my recycling company, I couldn't help but think about how far I'd come. From collecting empty bottles on the streets to building a business worth millions, it had been a wild ride. But with success comes new challenges, and I was about to face some of the biggest ones yet. As I looked out at the crowd, I saw a sea of familiar faces, investors, partners, and employees who had all played a crucial role in my company's growth. But I also saw new faces, people who were interested in learning more about my business and how they could be a part of it. I knew that I had to stay focused, to keep pushing the boundaries of what was possible. I began to explore new business ventures, looking for ways to expand my company's reach and impact. I met with entrepreneurs and innovators, people who were passionate about sustainability and reducing waste. Together, we brainstormed ideas for new products and services, ways to make recycling more accessible and convenient for people all over the country. One of the most exciting opportunities that came my way was a partnership with a major retailer. They wanted to work with me to create a new line of eco-friendly products, using recycled materials and sustainable practices. I was thrilled at the prospect of reaching a wider audience, of making a real difference in the way people lived their lives. But with every new opportunity comes new challenges. I had to navigate the complexities of working with a large corporation, of balancing my own values and vision with the needs and expectations of my partner. There were times when I felt overwhelmed, when I wondered if I was in over my head. Despite the challenges, I was determined to make it work. I poured my heart and soul into the partnership, working tirelessly to ensure that every product met my high standards. And when the line launched, I was thrilled at the response. People loved the products, and they loved the story behind them, the story of a small business that had made it big, of an entrepreneur who had refused to give up. As my company continued to grow, I began to see the impact that it was having on a national and global scale. I was invited to speak at conferences and events, to share my story and inspire others. I met with government officials and business leaders, discussing ways to create a more sustainable future. It was exhilarating, but also humbling. I knew that I had a responsibility, not just to my employees and investors, but to the planet itself. I had to stay innovative, to keep pushing the boundaries of what was possible. I had to stay adaptable, to respond to the changing needs of the market and the environment. As I looked out at the world, I knew that there was still so much work to be done. But I was ready for the challenge. I was ready to take my business to new heights, to make a real difference in the world. The question was, what would happen next? Would I be able to continue to grow and evolve in a rapidly changing world? Only time would tell. As I stood in my office, gazing out at the sprawling cityscape before me, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The recycling industry was changing and fast. New technologies were emerging and trends were shifting. I knew that if I didn't adapt, my company would be left behind. I remembered the early days, collecting empty bottles on the streets, struggling to make ends meet. But I had always been driven by a passion for innovation and a determination to succeed. And succeed I had. My recycling company had grown into a multi-million-dollar empire spanning across America. But success is a fleeting thing. Complacency can be a death sentence. I knew that I had to stay relevant to stay ahead of the curve. So I began to invest in new technologies, to explore new trends and innovations. I attended conferences and seminars, networking with other business leaders and learning from their experiences. I also made sure to surround myself with people who were smarter and more talented than I was. I hired a team of experts in sustainability and waste management, and together, we brainstormed new ideas and solutions. We experimented with new materials and processes, always pushing the boundaries of what was possible. One of the biggest challenges we faced was the rise of single-stream recycling. It was a game changer, but it also required significant investments in new equipment and infrastructure. I was hesitant at first, but my team convinced me that it was the way forward. And they were right. We adapted, and our business thrived. I also understood the importance of continuous learning and innovation. I encouraged my team to attend workshops and training sessions to stay up to date with the latest developments in the industry. We also partnered with universities and research institutions, collaborating on new projects and initiatives. The impact was immediate. Our business grew, and our reputation as innovators and thought leaders in the industry was cemented. We were no longer just a recycling company. We were a symbol of sustainability and environmental responsibility. As I looked out at the city, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. We had come a long way, but I knew that our work was far from over. The question on my mind now was, what legacy did I want to leave? What impact did I want to make on the world? And what's next? As I stood in my office, surrounded by the hum of machinery and the chatter of employees, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. From collecting empty bottles to survive, to building a recycling company worth millions across America, my journey had been nothing short of remarkable. But as I looked out the window, watching the sun set over the sprawling landscape, I began to think about the lasting impact I wanted to leave on the world. What would my legacy be? Would I be remembered as just another successful entrepreneur, or would I be known for something more? I thought about all the challenges I had overcome, all the late nights and early mornings, all the setbacks and failures. And I thought about all the people who had helped me along the way, all the employees who had worked tirelessly to build this company into what it was today. As I reflected on my journey, I realized that my legacy wasn't just about me. It was about the impact I had on others. It was about the jobs I had created, the families I had supported, and the communities I had helped to thrive. It was about the millions of tons of waste that we had diverted from landfills and the countless natural resources that we had conserved. I thought about all the ways in which my business was making a lasting impact. We were not only recycling materials, but also educating people about the importance of sustainability. We were working with schools and community groups to promote environmental awareness, and partnering with other businesses to develop new and innovative recycling technologies. As I looked around my office, I saw the faces of my employees, all of whom were passionate about making a difference. I saw the determination in their eyes, the sense of purpose that drove them to come to work every day. And I knew that I wasn't just building a company, I was building a movement that would outlast me, that would continue to inspire and motivate long after I was gone. A movement that would leave a lasting legacy, not just for me, but for generations to come. And as I smiled, feeling a sense of pride and fulfillment, I knew that I had finally found my true purpose. I was no longer just an entrepreneur, I was a force for good. And that was the greatest legacy of all. As I sit here, reflecting on the journey that has been my life, I am filled with a sense of pride, accomplishment, and gratitude. From the humble beginnings of collecting empty bottles to survive, to building a recycling company worth millions across America, it's been a wild ride. I've seen the highs and lows, faced challenges that seemed insurmountable, and learned lessons that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Looking back, I realized that it was the struggles, the setbacks, and the failures that taught me the most. They forced me to be resourceful, to think outside the box, and to never give up on my dreams. I learned that success is not a destination, but a journey, and that every step, no matter how small, is a step closer to achieving your goals. One of the most important lessons I've learned is the importance of perseverance. There were times when I felt like giving up, when the obstacles seemed too great and the doubts crept in. But I didn't. I kept pushing forward, driven by a fierce determination to succeed, and it paid off. I've also learned the value of hard work and dedication. Building a successful business takes time, effort, and sacrifice. There are no shortcuts, no magic formulas, and no overnight successes. It's the daily grind, the long hours, and the unwavering commitment that ultimately lead to success. But it's not just about the hard work and perseverance. It's also about being true to yourself, staying authentic, and never losing sight of your values. I've seen many people compromise their values, sacrifice their integrity, and lose themselves in the pursuit of success. But I've learned that true success comes from staying true to who you are and being guided by a strong moral compass. As I look back on my journey, I am reminded of the power of resilience. Life is full of ups and downs, twists and turns, but it's how we respond to those challenges that defines us. We can choose to let them break us, or we can use them as opportunities to grow, to learn, and to become stronger. To anyone who is just starting out, who is facing challenges, or who is doubting themselves, I want to say this. Never give up on your dreams. Believe in yourself even when no one else does. Stay true to who you are and never compromise your values. Work hard, persevere, and stay focused on your goals. And most importantly, never lose sight of the why. Why are you doing what you're doing? What drives you? What motivates you? What gets you out of bed in the morning? For me, it was the desire to make a difference, to leave a mark, and to create something that would outlast me. As I close this chapter of my life, I am filled with a sense of gratitude and appreciation. I am grateful for the journey, for the lessons learned, and for the people who have supported me along the way. And I am excited for the next chapter, for the new challenges, and for the opportunities that lie ahead. To anyone who has been inspired by my story, I want to say thank you. Thank you for listening, for caring, and for being part of my journey. I hope that my story has inspired you to chase your dreams, to never give up, and to stay true to who you are. and I hope that you will join me on the next chapter of my journey as I continue to pursue my passions and to make a difference in the world.